Hi, what I want to go over is how I do my process for my applique for my jackets. The first thing I do is go to cadworkslive.com, which is a site that allows you to make letters, logos, and as you can see right here, I'm launching the Design Studio 2 after I log in, and it's completely free. So you have options you can choose from, like text effects, circle text, templates, athletic tails. Uh, but for my purposes, what I'm going to do today is use the text effects option. So it brings you to another screen that allows you to choose from different text effects. I chose the large contour option because I find that to be uh, the best fit for what I do. Now you can open and you can edit the letters, and I'll type in my name. As you can see, it types in exactly how you put it. So if you want all caps, it has to be all caps. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see it has a T, which is for the text, and the contour is actually the outline. And you can add other effects as well, but I'm just using the text and the outline right now. You can change the color of the text, as you can see, or you can change the color of the outline, or both. So I go to contour, select the box, and pick a new color. Now, under the advanced, you have different options. So for instance, if I wanted to eliminate all the holes on the background, so I didn't want any holes to show, like inside the R, inside the O, I can choose that and hit apply, and it would remove all the holes. So now I have a completed word, but as you can see, it's all one piece. So you would go to shaping and go to break apart by colors. Now you can see it's two separate pieces, which is what we want, both for cutting and for the embroidery. So now I have two separate pieces, the background and the foreground. Line it up a little bit. I'm not really concerned about size. So you go to save as, or export, excuse me, and you choose a PNG file. Of course, name your file, but choose PNG because that's what we're going to need for the next step. Choose separate by color, so it will make two separate files, which we'll need for the next step as well. Save it to whatever location on your computer that you can remember, and that portion is complete. Now we move on to the next step. I have my downloaded files, which I just extracted. They were in a zip file. So you see, because we separated the colors, now we have two separate files, PNG1 and PNG2, which we're going to use now in Silhouette Studio. So you would open your files by going to the location where you saved it. You see PNG1, PNG2. So I've opened both files, but they're on separate tabs. So in order for me to work with this, without having to go back and forth, I'll copy and paste from one tab to the next so I can have both PNG files on one tab. Line it up as usual. And this is the step where you want to do your sizing, because whatever size that you cut your twill, the embroidery must match. So once I set my size in this application, I will not resize anything after this point. So I'm setting up my size for my word. I'm readjusting the twill size that I'm going to cut. I'm centering the word, or my name rather. Now I still have two separate pieces. I have the foreground and the background, because remember we imported both of those. So what we need to do now is convert those PNGs into SVGs. So I'm selecting my trace. Now as you can see, nothing happened. You can continue to select the item or the object and hit select trace and hit trace, and nothing will happen. What you have to do after you select the area with select trace is you have to adjust the threshold, as you can see, and then hit trace. Now I have the original object, which I just moved and deleted, and now I have the new object, which is an SVG file. I can add color to it, and I can remove the red outline because it's not necessary. We'll do the same thing with the foreground. We'll select the object using the trace. It automatically had the threshold, and so we just hit trace, and now we have two separate objects. The original object, the PNG file, and the new SVG file. Add color. And I didn't remove the red outline because the word was just red, so I just left it the way it was. So now I have a cut file that I can cut the twill out using the foreground and the background shapes. So I'm saving this as a Silhouette Studio file. I always save my SVG files just in case, because sometimes the library on Silhouette Studio acts kind of funny, so I save a copy to my hard drive. Now I'm saving it as an SVG, which is what we'll need for the next step. So I have a complete cut file now. Now I open the program, which is Twills Pro Plus, and it's by Stalls. I navigate to the folder where I just saved the SVG from Silhouette Studio, and I open that file. Now what you see here is both the foreground and the background in SVG format, and when you open that up in Twills Pro Plus, it automatically converts those lines into run stitches. You see I have two run stitches on the left. I have two colors on the left. I go down and I'm going to add two more colors because we'll need 2 stitches for run and 2 stitches for tackle twill, right? So you can change the color by clicking on it and then selecting the new color and hitting OK. And so I'm doing that now because I want to have 4 different colors to make it easier for me to see what's going on, and also for the embroidery process. So now I'll go to the first color, and that is the outline. That is the background. I copy and I hit paste, and so now I have 2 copies of that background SVG layer that is now a run stitch. I select the color by right-clicking, and as you can see, it assigned a color to that new run stitch that I just copied and pasted. Okay? Now you see I have the foreground layer. I copied and pasted that as well. I'll select the first color, click on number 3, which is assign that first run stitch a color, and then click on number 4, which assigns the second run stitch a color, and that is on the foreground layer. So now I have 4 layers. I have the 2 background layers, 2 foreground layers, and right now they're all run stitches, but that's not what we want. So the first thing I need to do is go to the first run stitch layer, and you see you have options where you can control what happens with that layer. So I want to do a frame out on that layer, so when it finishes the first run stitch, that the machine will stop, it'll do a frame out and allow me to put down the fabric. Okay, now when I go to the second run stitch layer, we're going to convert that. Go down to convert to, and you see you have different options where you can convert it to. What we're going to use is tackle twill, but you can use applique, which is basically a satin stitch, and then you have the steel and other variations. But we're going to choose run stitch. Tackle twill. And as you can see, it automatically puts the tackle twill stitches where they should go. You have options for size of the stitch, for cornering, You can decide whether you want to put down a tack down stitch or not. It's all up to you. You don't have to, but you can. The adjust holes, we'll talk about that in a second because it doesn't apply to this layer per se, but we just hit apply. So now that layer is complete. So now my background layer has a run stitch and a tackle twill. We're going to do the same thing to the foreground layer. Go to command, go to stop, or go to frame out to allow us to put down the fabric after that run stitch. And then we'll go to the second run stitch layer for the foreground, and we're going to convert that to tackle twill. So as you can see, we have the same effect. It adds the tackle twill stitches, but we want to adjust the stitch length because it's too long for my taste. So I adjust it to 3. You come down. Now where you see the adjust holes around the 0, around the O, and around the R, the stitches are inside. We want them on the outside. So we hit adjust holes and hit apply, and it automatically does it for us. It puts the stitches on the outside of the holes that are cut in the fabric. Right? Pretty handy. So for all intents and purposes, we're done with this file. So we can go to save, and we can save it as a stall file, which is basically the working file, which I always do just in case I need to come back. And you see we have many different versions machine formats that you can choose from, but I use DST, so of course I'll choose DST and hit save, and there you go. Now I have a sew file for the cut file that we just created in Silhouette Studio. So when I take this to the machine, it will cut. So here I'm doing a cut of the twill just using a Cameo 3. They have more expensive machines out there that'll do this as well, but I haven't had any issues with Cameo 3, so that's what I use. So I'm cutting out the foreground with the twill, and the settings I use for the twill, I'll put them in the comments. But there is the foreground. It just peels just like regular vinyl. The only difference is you won't reverse the twill. You will cut it the normal way. You won't mirror it at all. And here I am cutting the background. Same process. No mirroring at all.